Hey guys, Shane McMurray from the Wedding Report. In this episode, I interviewed Trevor from Aisle Planner. They are a SaaS or software as a service and publishing platform for event professionals. Check it out. All right, Trevor, thanks for doing this. Appreciate it. Tell me about your business. Tell me what city you're in, what you guys do, where your website, Instagram, any of that good stuff.
Sure. I'm with aisleplanner.com. Aisle Planner is, we're actually a couple of things. We are both a SaaS platform for wedding service providers. We're also a publisher. And so we've got an ecosystem that's developed again, on the SaaS side, primarily for those professional service providers, from planners to caterers and venues, DJs, entertainers, efficients, that include marketing tools, sales, CRM tools, as well as the planning and project management tools that go into creating an event from the day you meet your client all the way up to the day they say, I do. And they can do all of that in one place. And then the connection point to those clients is on the front end, which is a global facing publishing platform, as well as a marketplace directory for those pros to market themselves and establish that point of connection, make that first impression, and then go into the booking process. And that business.
Yeah, cool. You're a SaaS, so you say your SaaS platform. So tell me a little bit about, how as a business, how would I use the platform to run my business? Is it something I can run my entire business on for the booking piece, getting clients, that sort of thing, or is it something else?
Yeah, so I'll divide it up into the three sort of product silos that we have. On the marketing side, you have your directory listing, which is a fully customizable page that you can develop, from your hero image all the way down to your business description. Those key purchase factor elements of price range, the products and services that you provide, as well as things like client reviews, portfolio galleries to include, proof concepts, show the great work that you do. But of course, the peer review is a huge part in the consumer purchase decision making process. Yep. So all of that's included in that listing. But then we also have a publishing portal, and that publishing portal is built into the tool suite. Pros from every aspect of an event have the ability to push out stories over to us, collections of event pictures that tell a story from one of their events, provide a brief description of that event, something that's inspires the audience reader.
Yep.
And then send that over to us, and we accept, we decline, we work with them to massage it and make it appropriate for publishing, and then we hit publish, and off it goes into the content stream on Aisle Planner. And then in that process, they have the ability to to plug all of their partners. So if they're the venue, they can plug the planner, they can plug the the floral designer, the rental company. They can connect all of them through their websites as well as their socials and emails, so that they get notified that their partners have also been published. So it's a great reference point for pros who want to showcase their work and want to get their work published, to be able to connect it back to the people that they work with, because as we know, this industry is so heavily referral based, and there's a lot of give back, a lot of recognition that's paid in amongst those referral networks.
Yeah, it's highly relationship based, right? So
very much, yeah.
So being able to have good relationships and share and is key, I believe. Yeah. So how do brides or people getting married use the tool, discover it? Is there actually a mobile app? Or is it just a website?
It's website. We do not have a consumer mobile app, but we have consumer social media channels. We're on Facebook, Instagram. It was, and technically still, from a hosting standpoint, it's still under the one name, aisleplanner.com. The content lives on aisleplanner.com, but we are in the midst actually of launching a new consumer brand and experience. So our social channels have all moved over, and our additional outbound marketing branding is all changed over to what's called the Aisle Guide. The Aisle Guide pre-existed within aisleplanner.com as primarily our editorial articles content, but it's a great name that captures not only the more informative, practical tips and advice that are coming. Actually, quite a bit of our content's derived from our community of professional subscribers using these tools, but also that inspiration and the stories that are told, but also the collected imagery, the collected inspirational imagery that populates our gallery from all of those stories that are submitted to us. So consumers will and find the Aisle Planner either through our social channels. They'll follow. They'll be looking for inspiration, and they'll start obviously perusing all of those stories, collecting photos, saving them to their profiles. Those photos are all connected to the pros, the pros that created that work, and either published it or participated in the production of it. And then the articles in addition are also refer back to those pros, and if those pros have a published marketplace listing, they can find those pros within our directory and then immediately contact them. And as opposed for us, again, because we have the completely built up SaaS back office, essentially, is there's no middleman in that connection. So consumers, newly engaged brides, grooms looking to connect with their vendors have the ability to directly connect with the professionals that they're looking for. So it's not a pass along that gets sent from a more linear B2B platform that is strictly marketing.
So basically they're looking at content, they like it, they're assimilating it in their profile or whatever, and then have the opportunity to directly connect with the vendor in that space, right, that they're interested in.
Right. And that experience, there were a few more functions that we had. There were actually quite a few more tools that we had passed along to the consumers. They were unfortunately misconstrued as DIY tools, so we removed them. And so with the Aisle Guide launch, with the hard launch, which will be our V1 after this soft launch period, we're still in development, we'll have a new set of tools that will help the consumers prepare for their events. Obviously, the collection of imagery, which will also through the software that we've developed on the pro side, they'll also be able to extract colors out of that imagery to create color palettes, but they'll also be able to essentially establish the baseline of information regarding their account, to be able to assemble essentially a contact list of the vendors, potential vendors that they want to work with who are in their area. They'll also be able to get pre-populated geo-based vendors for consideration based on who we have working with us. And in addition to a lot of other features that will essentially give them this foundation, so that when they connect with the pros over an Aisle Planner, that they'll be able to instantly connect all of that data, rather than having to pass it along again via a contact form. The plan for us is to be able to pass that along, to essentially pre-populate a lead record or a client record. Once they've confirmed, essentially they'll be able to share that information that they've collected, rather than having to start all over again with a new contact.
Which is actually an interesting thing, because as I've been speaking with different people, one of the common themes is they're always collecting information from people about their experience, right? So they want to know and understand the person so they can build an experience that actually relates to them, right?
Yes.
And the challenge has been, as a consumer, they're going from place, I got to fill out a bunch of stuff here, go over here, and I got to fill out a bunch of stuff here. Oh, and this guy sent me a form, and I got to fill that out. So making that easier seems to me like a good solution or a good problem to try to solve.
It's a self-created for lack of a better term, problem, right? If you were to imagine, it's the client is essentially playing a game of tennis or table tennis with their own event, then the net is their net of vendors. Every vendor, and on average, the last report that I saw had 14. Is the magic average number of vendors that participate in your typical wedding. And that's 14 different personalities. That's 14 different processes. That's 14 different, different timelines that all relate to the same event. So what's, the ironic thing is that it's not a language thing. The relationship between vendors it's purely dialect. Everybody's speaking the same language.
Yep.
Everybody has process, and everybody has the need to develop a relationship both with those vendor partners, but obviously with the client, the person who's check at the end of the day. But it is an issue based on the mere fact that this industry is largely based on the cottage professions of these service and product providers that are generally, very hyper local to maybe regional. They're smaller, and they're heavily, dependent on closing that business and doing so in fast fashion, but also making sure that there's a personal relationship, because it relates to a long process that leads to a very, very personal, intimate event.
Yeah.
But there aren't these connection points that happen that bring everybody, all the stakeholders, into one place, speaking the same language about the same checklist, the same timeline, the same venue, the same inspiration, the same colors, that then gets, spewed forth from 14 different perspectives into the one event that ultimately, to your point, speaks to, the client's dream experience, the thing that they've been thinking about perhaps, most of their lives since they were a small child.
Yeah. Interesting. So what would you say you see, what would you say are the biggest challenges you see from the couple side getting married today that you guys are trying to solve?
From our standpoint, it's really consolidating that experience, really being able to provide a solution that streamlines their relationship with all of their vendors and makes them feel comfortable working with the size businesses that they're working with, given where they are technologically today. I mean, Gen Z has entered the marrying age, at the very earliest, stages of the marrying age. But they're, this first digital native generation has an expectation for their technological interactions with every product and service provider, every e-commerce transaction they intend to have. And even if it is just that initial connection through a website, through a social, media direct messenger platform, through an ad on a directory, or on a blog site, their expectation is they want to be they want to be met where they are, and they want to be heard, and they want to be heard and responded to quickly.
Yeah.
And so, what we're solving for is by providing a solution that allows for a professional to respond in that capacity, and to do so looking very professional, looking very attentive, and very acute in their business acumen, because they can manage that entire relationship lifespan from one place,
right?
Rather than using tools that, again, are more linear in design and in purpose. They're a B2B platform, and while the delivery is very professional, you can get that invoice delivered, and it's branded, and it's got a button, and you can pay. But generally, the design is limited, so it's not as customized to the individual brand that you have, that you would recognize is yours. But then once that particular transaction is over, then you're relegated to other means of communication or other platforms for the ability to communicate regarding other aspects of your your event.
Yeah.
So we have created a platform that essentially enables a client to stay connected with their pro in the in the lead to booking to planning and project management process all in one place. It's 360 degrees from, again, you could say from the day you say yes to the day you say I do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Let's flip the switch a little bit and talk a little bit about the business side more. When you think about like what's working well for businesses today, because you're doing business with a lot of different types of vendors, what would you say is kind of working? What do you see is working well most of the time for vendors?
In terms of any specific aspect of their business, or just in general?
Let's say just in general business, right? What do you see that's working well for them today? Is it communication? Is it marketing? What are the things that seem to be working well? I mean, we talked about relationships earlier, right? Everybody I've talked to seems to think that, seems to say that relationships. So do you think that's really the thing that's working well for them?
Marketing was the emphasis. Marketing was the thing again, I have to speak from the perspective of expertise, and from a technology perspective, marketing was working very well. And just in general, because you had the biggest opportunity coming from the biggest, the biggest investment in technology in the industry being marketing through the Knot and Wedding Wire. Yeah. So everybody had a place to go because the Knot and the Wedding Wire had access to the biggest, audience of consumers, and they had established, market dominance, and still do have market dominance in terms of the consumer, the consumer base out there understanding where to go, the consumer market knowing I can go to the Knot and find everything that I need. It's a trusted platform. However, there's a general shift happening, and it's something that relates to everybody in business, that consumers are everywhere. They have they are living lives across multiple platforms, and so your connection points are now varied. There's still plenty of traffic, obviously, coming into the Knot and Wedding Wire, but now the question is, okay, but now what? Mm-hmm. If I market there and I get a lead from there, what do I do with it? There's recognition now because of the digital savvy of the consumer market to find the solutions that can provide the best, most streamlined, most effective solutions to connect those points of that experience, the business experience that they're having with the consumers, from that first connection point all the way up to signed contract, first invoice, deposit paid, and that, coupled with the fact that with the availability of social media, and the availability of social media used now to validate and verify both the work of your prospective vendors, and also the work of your prospective vendor partners. Mm-hmm. It's now managing all those points of communication, and being able to not only manage that, but also be able to organize that and organize themselves such that they're not they're not trying to manage 7 different lines of communication, that they're actually able to bring everything into a place where they can manage that client's interactions in the development of the experience that they ultimately want, as opposed to having to communicate with them on a DM in Instagram or Messenger in Facebook, extract that out into their notes and wherever they're managing that client, whether it be Google Docs or even our platform, or being able to manage clients' expectations. If they solely want to be communicated via text, is how can I manage that client's expectations through this particular communications portal, when we need everything to exist, here. I need to organize myself, and I need to organize all of their input here.
Yeah.
So it's now almost it's almost a boundary setting. It's establishing a set of expectations on both sides of the relationship coin, between the client or the lead and the professional themselves, and being able to provide that transparency that's now expected. I want to be able to access Amazon 24/7, 365. Well, I can. And I can get everything I want. I can get my order history. I can get my order status. I can find out exactly where it is. It's two doors away. It's going to get delivered in the next 10 minutes. Yeah. That's the expectation of today's wedding consumer as well. And that's why we work when we develop Aisle Planner. It is from the both perspectives of the business user, but also who the true end user is, which is the consumer. The consumer expects to have this transparency, this access, even if they're not truly participating. So the pro may not have a client that is interactive, but they sure as heck know that client ultimately wants full transparency and full access to information whenever they want it.
So do you feel like sometimes things just fall off in a gap, right? Like, so I make, and it's true, people are coming from different places and there's so many different interactions. But let's say I book a vendor, right? And then all of a sudden they just kind of, okay, well, we're not talking for the next 6 or 8 months. And then, I got to remember I'm, dealing with this person and this person and that person and this person, which is kind of where a planner helps out when you have a coordinator or a planner, right? Kind of managing the plan. But if you're doing it yourself, you got to keep track of all that stuff, right? So that's, you're saying that the platform basically puts it in one place where they can see all the communication, if I understand it correctly.
Yes.
All the communication and transparency between all the vendors and people they're doing business with.
Yeah. And it's, I think that the point that you raise is process. So again, when it comes to being able to justify price points, when it comes to being able to being able to set boundaries and expectations and provide your customer with the access to, the information that they want when they want it, and not when you feel like giving it to them, when it meets your professional process. That having that platform where you can consolidate all of that data, all of that information into one place, be able to control the interaction with them, enable, and this could be true of Google Docs, this can be true of other project management platforms as well, is that you're able to essentially define for your client your process, that they ultimately are going to love the fact that you have a process, but they're also going to you're also going to be able to set some reasonable expectations that the questions that you're asking me at 11 o'clock at night via text can be responded to by yourself by logging in to your account, or logging into your project, not your account, logging into your project on my professional account, and being able to see where we are in the checklist, being able to see what the latest communications have been on the style guide for the reception, being able to look at what the color palette has, what color palettes have been generated based on the inspiration photos that you've uploaded for the ceremony. And that is still just based on who we know our primary new customer target looks like. They're trying to do all of these things across multiple platforms. They're using Google Docs and Sheets for documentation and tracking. They're using Pinterest and Canva for Pinterest for sourcing, and Canva for mood board and style guide creation, which ultimately has to be downloaded as a document. So it's that they may be using, e-sign for electronic signatures. They may be using, Apple Pay and GPay for payment processing, but that's not necessarily connected into, into QuickBooks. Maybe they're using QuickBooks. Maybe they're, they don't have anything to manage their, manage their accounts payable or their P&L, if they even have a P&L, So again, establishing process and using process to validate the value of your work and manage your clients, your clients' expectations for digital accessibility.
Yeah, that's great. I know you have a lot of stories, I'm sure. So what would you say is probably your best business or wedding story that you can share?
Well, we don't have, we don't interact with the, with the clients, the consumers per se. We're interacting primarily
with the business side,
with
right?
the businesses. So we're with the pros, but I think some of the greatest moments that we have are the conversations that we have that create those aha moments when we could be having that initial conversation with a brand new trial user, and they've just become so frustrated with the disconnectedness of all of their information, the disorganization, and how a couple of certain things might work. But the one that comes to mind is we're changing the way that we speak about the tools, because we were founded by a planner. We have for many years spoken primarily with the tongue of a planner, built things from the perspective of a planner. But as we built this out, we have really made a pro agnostic and event type agnostic platform, but having the conversations with the non-planner professionals, because the moment you say checklists and timelines, immediately a professional in this industry will just go straight to planners. Like these are planner tools. But we have a local vendor here in North County, San Diego, where we're located, that is a photography videography vendor, pretty popular one. They do quite a bit of business, and we were able to woo them over from another platform called Tave, and they're drinking the Kool-Aid. They see it. They see that we're also we're also we're a self-funded startup business. We run a very good, a lean, a tight, but very functional ship, and they see where we're going, and they trust where we're going. But the conversation had started essentially with them telling us they had no need for those planning and project management tools. And so I said, that's interesting. So do you mean to tell me that you have no pre-production prior to the event, no project management whatsoever? What about on the day of? What's your typical timeline look like? And kind of did the puppy dog head tilt, like what are you talking about? I ask him, point blank, I know you have a process. You can't tell me, running a successful business, you don't have a project process, right? And he said, no, we do. So, okay. So if we just take that word planner out of the conversation, we just put it in the drawer, for just a second, let's take a look at what this checklist looks like. We started going through it. If you were to categorize this based on your pre-production, day of production, post-production, all the collection of footage, the initial edit, the music edit, et cetera, you've got steps, right? And steps that you might have different people involved in. And then on the day of, clearly you have a timeline. That you need to, you need to grab your gear, you need to get somewhere. It's like, yeah, absolutely. And you could just see that the cogs, the rusty cogs starting to turn, and suddenly realize that, that it doesn't take everybody has, from a 101 standpoint, everybody has the same needs when it comes to producing an event, responding to a client's project needs. from beginning to end, and that your response to that in your business as a florist, as a baker, as an officiant, certainly as a planner, even as a venue, requires a process. And in that process, there are steps that are taken. There are, times and dates that are required. There's contact management that's required. There's creative input that needs to be collected, sifted through, and then related to, that outcome. And so, it in that conversation, it sank in. And that's it. I referred to that particular conversation, and we're really close to him. We're friends. But it was that conversation that I refer back to, seeing how people ultimately have that trigger moment where they realize that they actually are much more similar to their other professional than they originally thought.
Yeah.
And that and then that kicks off the conversation about, well, what if we actually did all talk in the same place, process in the same place, create in the same place? How much easier it would be to execute and execute towards the same end outcome, which is the same client's dream event.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's great. That's a great story. Trevor, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate you doing this.
Absolutely.
All right. Have a good one, man.
You too.
Hey, thanks for checking out this episode. I hope that you found it helpful. Please share it with other people. Also, if you're getting married or you work in the wedding industry, I would love to interview and share your information with other people. Send me a text, 520-399-8580, or shoot me an email at letschat@wedding.report.